You swipe right, you swipe left. In half a second, your brain has already made a judgment about a stranger's entire genetic future. It feels casual, it feels modern. But the real answer to how you choose a partner is far stranger, and it was written tens of thousands of years before phones existed. Your ancestors did not have apps, they did not have algorithms. They had something more ruthless: survival. Every choice about who could pair with whom was a matter of life and death for the group. Choose wrong, and a band could collapse within a generation. Choose right, and it could thrive for centuries. So how did small bands of 20 or 30 people, isolated by mountains and rivers, avoid the genetic disaster of marrying their own cousins over and over again? The answer involves math your ancestors couldn't write down, but somehow live by anyway. In 2017, a team led by paleoanthropologist Erik Trinkaus examined the remains of several individuals buried at Sunghir, a 34,000-year-old site in what is now Russia. The burials were extraordinary, bodies covered in thousands of ivory beads. Spears made of mammoth tusk laid beside them. Clearly, this community cared for its dead. But the real discovery came from the bones themselves. Genetic analysis showed these individuals were not closely related. No siblings, no parent and child. In a group that small, that should have been almost impossible by chance alone. Something was preventing it, something deliberate. That something was a mating network, not a single band choosing partners from within itself, but multiple bands, spread across a wide territory, deliberately exchanging partners with each other. A woman from one group, a man from another, meeting at seasonal gatherings, at shared hunting grounds, at ritual sites built for exactly this purpose. Think about what that requires. It requires memory of who belongs to which group generations back. It requires rules about who counts as too closely related to pair with. It requires trust between groups that might otherwise be rivals for the same resources. Your ancestors built an entire social technology just to keep the gene pool wide enough to survive. Why does this matter to you now? Because the instinct behind it never left. Anthropologist Bernard Chapais, in his research on the evolution of human kinship, argued that this system of exchange is the seed of nearly every social structure that came after it. Marriage, in-laws, alliances between families, even diplomacy between nations. All of it traces back to one prehistoric problem. How do you get genetically unrelated strangers to trust each other enough to combine their bloodlines? Here is where it gets strange. The rules weren't just about biology. They were about identity. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies, like the Hadza of Tanzania and the Ju, hoansi of the Kalahari, have documented strict systems determining exactly who a person could and could not marry, based on kinship terms that have nothing to do with actual blood relation. Someone could be called sister without being a biological sister at all, and that label alone would make marriage forbidden. The rule wasn't really about DNA. It was about maintaining the web of alliances the whole group depended on. Your ancestors were not thinking about chromosomes. They didn't know what a chromosome was, but they built rules that functioned exactly like genetic protection, wrapped in language, ritual, and taboo. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. Why does incest still provoke such a visceral, immediate disgust in you, one that requires no explanation and no lesson? Psychologist Debra Lieberman has spent years studying this question. Her research points to a mechanism called the Westermarck Effect, named after the Finnish anthropologist who first proposed it. People who are raised in close proximity during early childhood, regardless of actual blood relation, develop a deep sexual aversion to one another later in life. It's not a rule your parents taught you. It's not a law you memorized. It's a switch that flips automatically, based on nothing more than how much time you spent near someone as a child. This explains something that puzzled anthropologists for years. In certain Israeli kibbutzim, children raised communally from birth, alongside non-relatives, almost never married each other as adults, even when there was no biological reason not to, and no social pressure against it. Proximity in childhood did the work that blood relation was assumed to do. Your brain built a shortcut, grew up next to someone, labeled them family, shut down attraction. It's crude, it's imperfect. But for tens of thousands of years, on average, across millions of people, it worked well enough to keep bloodlines wide and communities functioning. So what does this mean for the modern moment you're living in? Every time you feel an inexplicable lack of interest in someone you grew up around, that's the Westermarck Effect, still running in the background of a brain built for a world of 30 people and a handful of neighboring bands. Every time you feel that a friend's sibling is somehow off limits even without asking why, that's a kinship rule dressed up in modern language. Every time a family gathering feels bound by invisible lines about who can date whom, you are looking at the fossilized remains of a system built to save your ancestors from genetic collapse. You think you are choosing freely. In some ways, you are. Dating today crosses continents, breaks every ancient boundary of tribe and territory, and connects people who would never have met at any Ice Age gathering. That part truly is new. But underneath the freedom, the old wiring is still active. Studies on modern partner preference consistently find that people report stronger romantic interest in partners moderately different from their own family in appearance and background. Not radically different. Not identical, but positioned in a kind of genetic middle ground. Too similar, and the ancient alarm bells start ringing quietly, the way they did for the mixed bands at Sunghir 34,000 years ago. There's something almost moving about this. Your ancestors, without writing, without science, without any understanding of DNA, built systems sophisticated enough to solve one of the hardest problems evolution ever handed them. They did it with beads and burial sites, with kinship names and seasonal gatherings, with an instinct for disgust that needed no instruction manual. They didn't call it dating, they called it survival, but the shape of the behavior is unmistakable. Meet strangers, judge compatibility, avoid what feels too close, build alliances through pairing. Every dating app on your phone is running a 34,000-year-old operating system, just with better graphics. So the next time you swipe, or hesitate, or feel a strange discomfort you can't quite explain, remember that you're not just choosing a partner. You are the newest link in a chain of mating rules stretching back to a Russian burial site, to seasonal gatherings between rival bands, to a Finnish anthropologist's theory about children raised side by side. Tonight, when you flip open an app and glance at a stranger's face, it will feel casual. It will feel like nothing more than a swipe. But the real answer to why you swipe the way you do is far stranger than you think, written into you by ancestors who never once heard the word matchmaking, yet built the rules for it anyway.